Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for tuning into this video. We're going to talk about prong collars and we're going to get straight to the point. I'll give you guys a little bit of context of what sort of brewed this topic up for me. And so I try to stay away from Facebook and comment threads when people are talking about things of which I know they don't really know, they don't really know what they're talking about, but they'll pretend that they do. Which you see a lot of in Facebook comment threads, which I made this point on my Instagram subscription stories today because I found myself reading somebody's comments randomly. This person I didn't even realize I was friends with said, complaining about her dog walking horribly and then she's fed up and this, that, and the third. And then, one of the comments was time for a prong collar. And for me, that stands out because there's so much more to, getting your results from a dog aside from just chucking tools on and going, right? And I think some of you guys are dog trainers that follow this Patreon page. Others of you are not. And maybe this description and maybe this breakdown might help you, might equip you with a little more ammunition when it comes to, explaining it to other people who are open to listen. Because there's one thing you guys should understand is this. There's a large portion of people that aren't even open and willing to understand the strategy and the concepts and the functionality of this wonderful tool. I'm just going to get that out of the way. Hey, get up here, up. It is an amazing tool, and in most instances, it's an absolute lifesaver, and it's a blessing, And it just bothers me that people who choose to use these tools in a fair, effective, efficient, appropriate way are being demonized. And the one thing that these people are doing that they may not realize that they're doing is they're actually attacking your character. They're saying that if you choose to use this tool, that it's cruel and it's this and it's that. And you're using this tool on your own dog, right? Would I actually use something on my dog that I really truly felt was damaging to them? You're basically saying I'm not a dog lover. Dogs are the reason I have everything that I have, right? It's my passion after my passion. I'm grateful. I'm beyond grateful. And I really feel, and I think a lot of you can probably resonate with this, everything that I do and my strategy, it's all tied into what I believe they deserve. And I believe they deserve everything. I believe they deserve fair, effective, efficient, and appropriate training. And prong collars fall right into that category. Now, obviously, you guys may have heard this sort of comparison before. Anything can be dangerous. It's very similar to the firearm. It's it's not the firearm itself that's doing these horrific acts. It's the people using them that are doing these horrific acts. But it's also police officers have firearms and they save the day every single day. So at the end of the day, when it comes to this, that's what it is. It's you're a moron and you're using it wrong and you actually are hurting your dog. Maybe not physically on the outside, because I've never ever seen a prong collar injury in terms of physically puncturing, unless of course you left a prong collar on a dog and they grew and it became embedded. A lot of these people will They'll Google prong collar injuries, and what comes up is an embedded collar. That is some schmuck who left the collar on the dog and never took it off. That's negligence. That has nothing to do with the tool itself. Okay? So, anyway, going back to what I was saying, dude, how dare you sit there from your emotional standpoint, because you're not willing to listen. You're not willing to actually listen to a breakdown of how this tool is appropriately used. You're just emotional because it looks intimidating. And I will say it does. It most certainly does look intimidating. I was against prong collars too before somebody taught me, but thankfully I was open to hey, what's this thing all about? Because I was really, really struggling. But when it came time for me to learn how to use one, what I came to find out was there were so many different nuances and so many details that go into using it effectively that I learned that it wasn't just the tool itself that's causing pain so the dog listens. If you're a heavy-handed moron and you're just slamming heavy corrections, yeah, the dog is going to listen out of fear. That's not the way that we teach. We don't want the dog to be afraid of us. We want the dog to understand what it is that we want from them in a healthy capacity, right? We want it to be healthy for them. And so with that, I'll go into a little bit of the, how, if you're going to explain how do you make it healthy? Well, the first thing, and a lot of you trainers that are watching this video, you already know, there's a conditioning process to it. How do you condition a prong collar? Well, some people will put the prong collar on and they'll leave it on and they won't even use it at all. They'll actually just put it on the dog and they'll be wearing it. And then when it comes time to actually use the tool, we don't start using leash corrections with it. We are going to do what we call introduce. Hey, shush, shush, shush. We are going to introduce them to what the pressure means, right? So for example, a simple pressure release drill with the leash. Dog passes you, you stop, there's tension on the leash. They're going to run into what the pressure feels like because you stop, they continue going, right? So they feel the pressure, you take a step back, they follow you, you give them a piece of food, okay? Dogs learn through patterns and repetitions. Now the pattern is every time they run into this pressure that they feel, they come back to you and they get a piece of food. That's it. You get them to willingly follow that leash pressure. And then they start to understand what it means because every time they feel that pressure, they come back towards you, okay? The other thing I do before I start actually using it, there's a saying, you want to teach for the e-collar, but I think you could actually translate that into this as well. You want to teach them that it's the gas pedal before it's the brakes, right? So like introducing it in a positive format, it's almost like, oh, I feel that pressure, I get a piece of food for that. That's gas pedal. Brakes is when now they know what the sensation is and you've been using it. Now you're going to start using it for like a leash correction here and there. But the other thing I like to do, and when I'm teaching a dog to walk, see, because on this comment thread, I'm like, the prong collar doesn't teach the dog to walk. There's strategy and technique that goes into teaching a dog to follow you without even the use of a prong collar. I could get any dog to walk on a flat buckle because it's just about getting them into more of a follower state of mind. If they're jacked up full of energy, I'm going to change directions 500 times until they lose that like initial excitement of like just entering, outside from the kennel or whatever. So it's like you can healthily, without them pulling on the leash and getting, continuing this bad habit, because that's what people do. They just let the dog pull them because the dog wants to do what the dog wants to do and they feel bad for saying no. Well, if I'm trying to get the dog to follow me, I'm going to have something in my back pocket to get the dog to understand that, dude, I know you're excited, but you're going to follow me and the leash is going to be loose, okay? Directional changes is probably the most underrated technique in the world, dude. I mean, change directions. If it takes you 20 minutes to get to the end of your driveway because your dog continues to try to pull, then it takes 20 minutes. You're going to change directions until the dog slows down, until the dog gets in more of a follower state. In between time, you're working your pressure release payment stuff, right? So there's way more that goes into this. Like the prong collar, we'll still use prong collars on dogs that know how to walk because it's just a nice tool to have in your back pocket in the event that you need it. It's almost like showing up to a job where you need a specific tool and you brought the skill saw, right? But you chose to use a hacksaw, something that's going to make the job 5,000 times more difficult. And people are like, oh, you're just lazy. You use prong collar. I'm just lazy? No, I'm lazy. Are you listening to the amount of detail that goes into utilizing this tool? That's not what a lazy person does. A lazy person just starts doing heavy corrections and then the dog is flattened out and they're just fearful. And it's like that you got a fist hovering above their shoulder. I don't produce dogs like that. And so when you demonize the tool, you're demonizing the person that loves his dogs more than anything in the world. So you can see how that's offensive. Now, these days, I'm so used to this that people will attack me and I'm like, it has literally zero effect on me because I know in my mind, well, we can compare dogs if you really want to get down to it, or we can talk about it, both of which people will never elect to do. But it's just about having a strategy, right? And then, as time goes on, the dog understands what it is, and your dog is just like willingly complying because you've taught them, you know. And another thing is I like to layer in the prong collar. So like I'll teach a dog to walk on a flat, but then all of a sudden I'll put the prong collar on as well. It's just such a beneficial tool to have in your back pocket, right? And so what else is there to talk about when it comes to the prong collar? The way you fit it, right? It has to be fit appropriately to where it goes all the way up and it's not hanging down. That's why people get prong collars and they never learned. They're hanging like necklaces. And the reason that's problematic is because you're not getting the full effect of the tool. The dog is gonna like pull right through that because it's lower down on the chest and it's just not as effective. And the other thing is you have more control over the head when it's fitted properly. Where the head goes, the body will follow, right? So there's all these things that if somebody was willing to actually be open-minded enough to learn, which all my clients are because they're looking for a solution and they know that I love my dogs and they know that I would never hurt my dogs. So it's almost like, oh, okay, now I know. Now I don't have such a negative connotation to it because yes, again, it looks like a death contraption and I fully understand that. But if you've ever felt a good German-made Hermspringer prong collar, dull and rounded, it's like you put one on yourself, you're like, this doesn't even hurt, you know? So that's it. I'm pretty sure there's more I can add into this video, but it's already getting pretty long-winded. If you guys have anything to add in the comments, make sure you drop them down below. And if somebody, you know, you look at the Facebook thread and it's like, oh, but this person's a dog trainer. This is what I'll end with. How are you considering yourself an ethical dog trainer if you're just saying, oh, time to put a prong collar on? Because we know that with the wrong temperament, if a dog is in some sort of fear space, a prong collar is like the last thing we're going to start with, okay? We're going to have to build some trust, some foundation, some basic rules, and then we can layer that in after the fact. But to just write time for a prong collar and you're considering yourself a trainer and you start banging your chest like I'm certified, it's a red flag right away. Because that's not the advice you want to give to somebody who probably doesn't even know what a prong collar is. Okay, it's very important to understand what it is, why we use it, when we use it, and of course, how we use it. That's all I got for you guys this evening. Thank you for being a part of my Patreon family. I know I don't really post a lot of content lately, but I've not been as inspired as I have been, and I haven't really been feeling as good as I have in the past, and I think that's really kind of showing in my lack of like desire to produce content and to talk about things. But if you're still here, I have to imagine that you're here because you know that even if I don't feel like it, I still get my ass up every day and I'm out here working with these dogs and I'm working on my property and I'm running this business, and I couldn't be more grateful for you. So that's all I got. Anything to add, put it down below. Any questions, you guys want any specific content, let me know. Captain Shad out.